All right, the saga of the Duke Nukem Forever has had an encore this week with the 2001 prototype of the game leaking online. As you may see, oh wait, this is not the right one.
Well, that's also having a development saga of its own, Skull and
That
Bones.
is an
Someone's put the wrong number in here.
Gameplay.
So, and by the way, with this B-roll, if you're watching YouTube, I had to heavily edit this because there was some very naughty B-roll that
Naughty bits.
would potentially take down our channel. So this game was in development hell for 14 years at 3D Realms with multiple overhauls and game engines. Eventually, Gearbox Software purchased the IP and finished the game in 2011 with an overwhelming reaction of being disappointment. It didn't even make our 2011 Game of Some Other Year 26 game shortlist. I mean, that's the most damning.
26 games, and I actually listened back, and we spent all of about 10 seconds debating. We're like, Duke Nukem Forever?
Nah.
Nah. And look, I actually don't think Duke Nukem Forever is as bad as most people think,
No,
but
it
that is
wasn't
pretty.
that bad.
That's pretty damning. It's also testament to how good 2011 was. But.
Yeah, well, 20,
It's about as
2011,
bad as the
so-
gun that's in the B-roll right now. Useless.
The prototype of this game was from the 2001 build of the game, a version heavily promoted in the popular trailer at E2 2001.
Oh.
The build contained many unfinished but playable levels, including locations features that would be included in the final 2011 game.
What are you reading? It says E3. What are you reading?
Yeah, right.
I was thinking to myself, wow, this is so old. E3 was known as E2 back then. Damn. Tell you what, for a 2001 game, that didn't look too bad. I mean, clearly
You
it's not
reckon?
finished. Well, it's not. You got to look back at 2001, man. 2001, that was a long time ago, 20 years ago.
So this was
It looks-
just before Halo, basically. Like that's the kind of era we're talking.
To me, that looks
So-
better than Halo. That's the kind of.
Well,
that's
it's on
the kind of thing I was
PC,
saying.
first
I know
of
it's on
all.
PC.
I don't
and
know
stuff
about
as well.
that. Calm
But
down, dude.
honestly,
Stand down. Stand
it's-
down.
It's weird. So I could have seen that as being something that they could have polished. It clearly wasn't finished. There was a lot of stuff they're missing, but at the same time, it was pretty late in its development. If you look at the fact that it had a lot of stuff in there already, that I'm surprised they didn't continue going down that path. It didn't look that bad. You know
They
what
did.
I mean?
They did continue going down that path for another 10 years. So,
Yeah, but I
like,
mean-
it's crazy. Like, because there's different. Sorry, I know you're about to probably say something else, but I was just say like, there's different points in time where Duke has kind of been Duke Nukem Forever was like a different thing, and this was like the midpoint of that. There was like an earlier version in like before, I think it was like 99 or 2000 something, and then there was one later on. This is the one that most people remember. So.
Well, this is I feel, having seen the entire footage now of the leaked stuff, that, you know, a bit more polish, another, not even a year maybe, because back in those days I reckon another 6 months, a year tops, and that would have been a solid, fully finished game. So it's interesting that they didn't go ahead to do it.
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of footage over the last few days of this. I actually did track it down, but I didn't have time to try. There was an error to get it to run, so I didn't have time to try to resolve that. But it's interesting how much they actually did retain in the Gearbox version, like the fact that you start in like Duke's penthouse and with all the like monuments to himself, and then you go into a casino. The fact that it's got the ego meter. You know, that you, and in Duke Nukem, in the 2011 one, it's like you level that out by like lifting weights and things like that. So it's interesting to see. It's such a weird microcosm of like the gaming industry, how this has gone. It's like, you know, it's like what could have gone wrong went wrong. And the fact that the end result was still something that people just weren't happy with is just, it's so bizarre. It's so interesting.
I do tend to agree with Mike though, and maybe it wasn't like the perfect game, but at some point, I don't know, and maybe this is just the way my brain is wired. You sort of just have to get things out there at some point, and almost just like draw a line in the sand and just go, okay, well, you know, this is going to force us to shape things down or change things. Because yeah, what was it, like 14 years? Like that's just insane.
Yeah.
Like we're so old.
And
We
it
played Duke Nukem 3D in like high school, and it was like we were out of uni by the time the Duke Nukem Forever came out. It's insane to think of it like that.
I wasn't allowed to use the computers in high school. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
For 6 months because I had a copy of the game. So there was already a copy on some of the computers in the computer room.
I think I
Some of
installed
them.
it.
And then, so must have been it. And then I brought the disc, and some year 10s took the disc off me, started installing it on a bunch of different machines, traced it back to me, because I didn't even do it. I just had the disc. And yeah, I was banned from using the computers for 6 months.
So
Then I went on to get a computer science degree just to prove, Mr. Neri, you fuckhead, wrong.
hey, he was a good guy. Hey, you're also doxing us.
No, you wasn't.
You're doxing us by saying that. I'll have to scramble to delete this
You
stream.
banned me from going on computers in a bloody computer class for 6 months.
Remember,
That's a shit teacher.
He always had that shirt. What was it? The Stussy shirt or?
I thought he had a Nike. I thought he had a Nike shirt.
Yeah,
but maybe
Nike
I'm wrong.
shirt, and he had like the sports car, but like the poor man's sports car. It was awesome.
No, that sports car will be worth a lot now.
Yeah,
but
no,
anyway.
true. So one thing that has happened with this leak coming out, it has stirred up some old wounds. So I've actually, does it come up? Yeah, cool. We've got it coming up. So first off, how do you say this guy's name? Greg Broussard.
George.
Oh, what did I say? Greg.
Greg.
I probably said his last name right, but not his first name.
I think it's Broussard. I've always
Broussard,
said
yeah.
Broussard.
Video game vet, co-founded the original 3D Realms and Apogee. Do you say Apogee or Pogee?
We went through this in our Apogee segment. Let's not retread.
I really can't remember. He made Duke Nukem 3D and more, likes to draw, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, quote, in his tweet, yes, the leak looks real. No, I'm not really interested in talking about it or retreading a painful past. You should heavily temper expectations. There is no real game to play, just a smattering of barely populated test levels. I have no knowledge who leaked this.
Man, this was pretty bloody good for barely populated test levels, is all I can say. It wasn't that bad.
And
I was impressed.
All of the commentary, like and we're not going to go through them because it's not like filtered, but like very negative, like commentary back to him. Like people are very much of the opinion they deserve something. Right? It's like they deserve the leak and get to see someone's like draft work.
They got a game that got released, like that is all, like, not that people even deserve that, but a game was released. Sure, it's not the one that people wanted in 2001, but come on.
Yeah. And I think it's like these fans have it in their head of like a game that never existed really, but like it's as if it's there somewhere. It was just hidden.
Yeah, and everything in that E3 trailer was essentially in this test build, but it was just obviously very heavily curated, just like all kind of E3 stuff is.
And we're becoming a bit of a tea spilling channel, but it then provoked Scott Miller, who Scott Miller to me is always the guy that I think of if I think of like Apogee and 3D Realms. I think he's like names blasted over everything and he's still like related to it. So he released a blog post about this. Should I read this out, Swinny? Rapidly?
Yeah, I'll just say he's the other 3D Realms co-founder.
Yeah.
George Broussard is the other, like they're the two halves. So.
The two key guys. So, quote, and this is from his blog post titled, The Truth About Duke Nukem Forever. So, looks like someone has leaked a build of Duke Nukem Forever from 2001. Anyone expecting much of a playable game will be disappointed. The game's brilliant trailer from the period definitely overrepresented what was actually playable in the game. By the way, I have no idea who leaked the build or how they obtained it. Interesting they both said that, but parking that. Duke Nukem Forever is the game that destroyed 3D Realms and ended up getting the company sold to an investor in Denmark, where it's still based. While our games like Max Payne and Prey were keeping the company afloat, Duke Nukem Forever was a constant money pit for the company and eventually killed the original 3D Realms / Apogee. In my opinion, while I was not part of the Duke Nukem Forever project, as a company owner, I have some good insights into the issues with the game's development. Number one, we were always understaffed by at least 50%. Number two, we did not have a good development roadmap, at least I never saw one. And instead, the project had ad-libbed too much. And number three, because of the game's slow development, when new 3D technology became available, the project, in effect, rebooted to make use of the newest tech, causing massive delays over and over. I recognize that the Duke Nukem Forever was in deep trouble back in 2004 and tried to get the entire game developed by a more experienced studio, Digital Extremes, now famous for Warframe. The owner was eager to take over Duke Nukem Forever from us and even had the blessing of our publisher at the time, Take-Two. But this idea was shot down internally. It turned out to be a fatal suicide shot. In the end, we worked out a deal to somehow barely save the project with Gearbox Software and basically handed over the future of the Duke brand to them and the idea that they'd finish the game. A year or so later, it was released. It's a very sad story, no matter how you look at it. It brought 3D ROMs to its knees. All of our development teams left or was released. And the 3D Realms name is now owned by someone with no connection to our past. I do hope that Gearbox can resurrect Duke Nukem at some point. It seems the obvious move would be to recreate Duke Nukem 3D using Unreal 5, and if it does well, then start making more Duke adventures while also expanding the universe with new characters. Scott Miller, Apogee founder.
I think it sounds like a little pitch to Gearbox in that last line there, but
But it's also, I do love the
blue
deflection.
point.
He's like, he did nothing wrong. Effectively, you go through the whole thing.
I just had to do a hat swap. I was going to do it before the segment to my Duke Nukem Forever hat.
Oh, nice.
Which I do wear on the show, but I'm like, why am I not wearing it for this segment?
Yeah.
Shake it, baby.
So what did you think of this blog post, Swinny?
I mean, look, it's very, like, I read both takes and both I can kind of, like, sympathize with in a way because we don't know everything that happened and there's so much bad blood, as we'll get to George's response to this in a second, that it's like surely some shit went down that is probably both sides are partially to blame. But I mean, look, if just, you know, by all accounts from, I remember even back all the way back in like that period of time, you were hearing them constantly moving to new engines, constantly adding new stuff and scope creep and all this stuff that basically just kept blowing the game out. And someone unfortunately had to make that hard decision, and I think that was Scott Miller's choice to make. So,
well, yeah, and look, this is a funny blog post when you read through it because it's like he is the company owner and he was the company founder. He could have easily made these calls at any point, and you know, I've worked on lots of things where it hasn't gone that well, but having something run for like 14 years and then kind of put your hands up and go, well, nothing's my fault here. But we'll go into George Broussard's response on Twitter. So, you know, this posted as an Apogee Entertainment tweet, and he's replied to the tweet, quote, Scott's a clueless narcissist whose actions are what led to the Gearbox suits/friction that led us to losing 3D Realms and the Duke IP. Mind-blowing the nonsense he spews. Not surprising due to his depth of manipulation and narcissism. Least I've had the class to keep thoughts private. Damn.
Ouch.
but my response to that is, well, you did respond. You know, like, so
Your thoughts are not
that
private.
it's like, you know, you did say something, so it's not like you were completely silent about it. But who knows? Look, I don't
first
know.
tweet that he had.
Yeah. So he did mention it, but look, I don't know what to think of this. It's just terribly entertaining stuff, really.
You love the tea spilling.
I love it. Because obviously it's not great to have, you know, conflict, but at the same time, I love the whole story of Duke Nukem Forever is just so amazing. And, you know, I don't know, maybe it's already been written about, but would make the most amazing book.
Yeah, we
It
don't
would
get...
just be incredible.
We kind of don't get enough of that, right, in gaming. Like, you've got Jason Schreier writing some books, but that's where he's been allowed to actually write those books. Like, we don't usually get tales unless people are okay with it. Like, stuff like this would be awesome to hear about, like, what the hell's going on, like, with that. Or
a Netflix series, please. I'd love to see them two in a ring fighting it out. Do you guys? So on a serious note, do you think that there is a chance that the Duke Nukem franchise / brand will come back, or do you think it's just the kind of character that just doesn't work anymore in this day and age?
No, I think so. I'd buy the IP if I could. I think there's value in it.
So you think there'll be a good game coming out?
Oh, I'm not sure about that. That's a different question.
Yeah. Look, Duke Nukem, regardless of how you kind of approach it, like it's owned by Gearbox, and like look at the stuff Gearbox has done in the past. Like they definitely are all over the crass humor and things like that. I
That's
just
a good
think that
point. Yeah, I feel like
they're
yeah.
probably just leaving enough time from Duke Nukem Forever. But I mean, Duke Nukem's cropped up like he was in Bulletstorm. There was like a version of Bulletstorm that they did where he was a playable character and stuff. I think he was playable. He was a character at least. So they've toyed around with the idea. But we do talk about, and this is what you were mentioning, it's like, oh, how would it be? And the whole like self-aware thing, I think, everyone says that idea. I almost think if you take away, and I know it's important to the older games, or it's not important, but it's like a big part of Duke. If you take away the just absolute misogyny part of it, and like the horrible depictions of women and stuff, I think Duke can still work if you take that stuff out in modern day. So
Yeah. But just on that, like, I love history, and you go through even recent history, last 100 years, you always have ebbs and flows, like each decade of like more conservatism, more liberalism, more conservatism. Like, I think we get very stuck in, oh, this is the way it's going to be forever. And I'm telling you right now, it's not. Like, we are very hard on a certain pendulum now of ultra PC-ness. And I feel like it's going to swing back. It's inevitable it's going to swing back. And it's probably going to swing back hard. And then I think games like Duke Nukem are like so perfectly poised to capitalize on it. It's almost like, fuck you. Like, here's this game and it's ultra misogynistic and ridiculous and all that kind of stuff. And it will blow up.
That's true.
And it won't be like the
Could well
biggest
happen,
game,
yeah.
but, there'll be a segment of the population that will love that kind of stuff. And I think, you can do that stuff well in a comedic way. Like, it's also like, what's the nature of why you're doing it? And, how much do you labor certain things and how creepy you are and all that kind of stuff. I think it matters heaps. But I think, yeah, right now, you'd make a really tame version of Duke, which I think would be kind of shit. But I think there will be a time in the next, who knows, like, it's hard to predict the timing. But I think, not too far away, there'll be a time where we swing back the other way a little bit and get over this ultra ridiculous kind of behavior that everyone's in from a PC perspective. But all right, let's get into our last bit of news.